as vegans, we can be very acutely aware of the deep suffering that animals endure on a daily basis on our planet. And I know I've been there where that experience, that awareness can be very painful. You might feel sad, heartbroken, disheartened. You might feel angry or frustrated, and that might drive you to either drive yourself into a rut, into a downward spiral where you just feel negative all the time, you feel sad, you feel overwhelmed, or perhaps you deal with it by lashing out and you feel yourself getting angry all the time with the people around you, and you're not able to communicate effectively with the people who are the closest to you, the people that you think you love. And so what I'm going to share with you in this video is what I've done, the steps that I have taken to go from, being sad, disheartened, angry, frustrated, because believe me, I've been there and I've cried over this many, many times. I'm going to share with you how I went from there to where I am today, which is much more positive. I feel happy, I thrive, and I feel really ready to go make a difference in the world, and I'm able to take actions that actually transform the world. Now, before I crack into it, my name is Ryuji. I've been a vegan for about 3.5 years. I've been a vegan activist for several months now, and you might be asking yourself the question, who is this guy to teach me how to manage my emotions? And yes, I'm not the authority on this topic. However, for the past 5 or 6 years, I've been obsessed with studying personal development and emotional mastery, and I've read many books, I've had many teachers, I've been to many transformational seminars and workshops, and I've done the work on myself. And so what I'm going to share with you is the synthesis of what I've learned from many different sources, and more importantly perhaps, what I've applied to my own life and what has worked for me. I want to tell you a little bit about my background as a vegan, because now I look at my life now and I'm like, okay, cool, I watch animal cruelty all the time and I kind of face it and I'm cool with it, I'm dealing with it in all these ways, but it wasn't always the case. For 2.5 years when I first went vegan, I barely watched animal cruelty, and the reason I didn't do that was because I wanted to avoid it. I was hiding it, I was hiding from it rather, and I was trying to suppress those emotions. And when I think back to how I dealt with pain over the past 3 years now, it's really been two different things that I've seen. One of the things is dealing with pain, the pain that's more like an overwhelming sense of desperation or sadness by seeing animals suffer, and you feel the animals suffer and you're like, I feel this pain, this is so horrible, and you just feel like completely desperate because you're like, I can't understand why this happens, I can't believe people do this, I can't believe the people who are closest to me support this, and I just feel so sad, and I feel like things are never going to change, there's nothing you do about it, etc., etc. So that's one form of pain. The other form of pain that I personally experienced, that you might experience too, is when you suppress those emotions, when you try to run away from that. And what happened in my case was that I would blow up, because if you read a book like Letting Go by David R. Hawkins, he talks about how the default way we learn to deal with emotions in our society is to not address them. Instead, we might suppress them or stuff them down, but we don't really learn to deal with them effectively in a way that we actually let go and we can move on with our lives. And so what happened with me, and you might relate to this, is when I first found out about this, I first found out about the cruelty directed towards animals, I was like, this is so horrible, I can't believe this happens. But at first, I didn't have anyone to talk about it with. I was all alone. I felt like I was alone. And what ended up happening was, with my girlfriend at the time, I would just lash out on her, and I would try to talk to her. And you might relate to this. If, you probably want the people who are around you to go vegan, and you try to talk to them, and perhaps you just always get so emotional about it, and then they don't want to listen. And that's exactly what happened to me, because I saw this, I was like, this is horrible, and I was trying to communicate this, and because it wasn't communicating, I would just get so frustrated, and I would tell her things like, do you want me to go lock myself up in a closet for this whole night? This is what animals have to go through, you don't understand, how can you do this, blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And I would kind of blow up. And I was thinking about this, and it really occurred to me that the reason that this happened in my case was because I had these emotions, but I didn't really lean into them. I didn't allow myself to feel them, therefore I didn't let go, and because I didn't have a healthy way to deal with them, it would explode and it would come out in this context where I would just lash out on the people who are closest to me. So I think that's one thing that can happen when you don't learn to deal with pain in an effective way. And the second thing, I want to tell you another story about this too, is I was on a road trip with my friends all around the Southwest. We were just going around, it was a photography project, we were taking photos of these different places in the Southwest. We're checking checking out nature. And we're driving by at some point, I can't remember what state this is in, but we were driving, and along the side of the road there was this farm. It was a cattle farm, and I saw these cows. It was a feedlot, probably, now that I think about it, but there were all these cows who were there. Now that was the first ever time that I've actually seen a factory farm or a big farming operation since I went vegan. And as soon as I saw that, I told my friend, I was like, yo, pull over right now, like we gotta pull over. So he pulled over, and I went over there, I hopped the fence, and I spent some time with the animals. And this was the first ever time that I connected with cows. And you know, I saw them, and what I felt in that moment was really, really powerful, because I had known about the abuse that goes on in the industry. I was like, okay, we shouldn't exploit these animals, but I never really met them. And in that moment, that was the first time that I personally connected with cows. And in doing so, I felt so much pain, because I couldn't stop thinking about how, you know, after these few minutes are over, I'm gonna have to leave this place, and these cows are gonna get killed soon. That's the only thing that awaits them, and I'm just gonna go about my life. And I felt so much pain, and I remember there was a person from the farm who came along to kick me out. It was like, yo, you can't be here. And I was like, okay, like, so I'm gonna go. So I left, I got in the car, and as we drove away, I just started crying, and I couldn't stop crying, and I was just bawling and bawling and bawling. And you know, I was like, I can't believe this happens. And that was some of the deepest pain I've ever felt related to this whole topic. And when I think about my situation back then, the people who were around me, no one was vegan in that car except for me. And so as I was crying, I felt completely alone. You know, the car was silent because everyone could clearly see that I was crying. And you know, by that time I learned to feel my emotions and accept that I'm feeling my emotions, something I want to talk about a little bit on later too. But you know, no one understood me there, and so everyone was silent, and no one really knew what to do, and I just felt like I was really alone. And this is something that you might experience too, and that I experienced for the first 2.5 years that I was vegan, where I felt like I was all alone. You know, I felt all this pain, I felt this frustration against the people who were close to me, I felt the pain of the animals, and I felt like I was alone. I felt like, you know, am I crazy here? Like, because when I was crying in that car, I was like, how am I so devastated and everyone else seems to be fine? What's going on here? Am I crazy to care so much? And that was kind of what was in the back of my mind the whole time. Now, like I said, I never really addressed this, because that's the problem too. What I think I did, you know, before I really learned how to deal with these emotions in a healthy way, is that because I would suppress so much of these emotions, I just would never think about it. But if I think about what was going on in the back of my mind, it was really the type of dialogue like, yo, I'm probably all alone. I feel like no one cares the way that I care. You know, I feel like it's just like I was questioning. I remember questioning, like, am I crazy to care so much about animals and the suffering of animals? And those are real questions that were going through my mind. And so, you know, to kind of cap off this part, those are really the two types of pain that I dealt with that you might relate to, that I see a lot also in the people who message me. Now, how do you efficiently deal with that? Because one thing I found is that, you know, in the past few months, one of the major ways that I was able to grow personally is I was really able to learn how to face reality and face suffering in the world and still go about my life and thrive despite that, be really positive, and ultimately spread this message, be a vegan activist, and change the world. And when I thought about it, I really thought those two things were really, really related. So let me explain. I think the first really important thing when it comes to feeling and dealing with pain is to let yourself feel the emotions. I learned this from sources like Letting Go by David R. Hawkins, but many, you know, sources that deal with releasing childhood trauma or really dealing with emotions, there's this saying that the only way out is through. So I think it's really important to learn how to connect with our own emotions. And for me, definitely, I come from a background where, you know, I didn't used to feel my emotions at all. I was very closed off. I used to, like, I didn't cry for the majority of my life after I was a kid, probably from the time that I was like 5 years old all the way to when I was like 19. I never cried. I never felt like intense emotions. So I definitely understand how that feels like. And in many ways, I feel like being disconnected from my emotions, that's what created that first type of pain that I talked about, where I would just lash out and be frustrated with the people around me because I wouldn't let myself feel the emotions, therefore it would just burst out in these unhealthy ways. So the first step is to really let yourself feel these emotions. Now, how exactly do you go through that process? That is not, I think that's like kind of above my paycheck. I can't articulate it that well yet, but I definitely think that it's healthy to make that commitment to be like, you know what, I'm gonna feel everything, because that's really what I do now. Now, if I'm really gonna go there and I'm really gonna face reality, you know, I realize that I can now choose whether I do this or not. Like, for example, when I'm a vigil at a slaughterhouse, I realize that, yo, if I really want to go there, I'll actually go up to the truck that's there, and I'll look into a pig's eyes and really connect with that pig and really connect with reality. And when I do that, it will really break my heart. And when that happens, I'll just let it all out. No filters. I'll just feel all of it. Because if I don't, then I'm just gonna suppress it, and it's just not gonna help me, it's not gonna help the animals, it's not gonna do anything good. So the first step is just to feel it and feel all of it. Now from there, a couple things that have really helped me is putting myself around the right people. Once I started facing more animal cruelty, and this is what I talked about, we made a video about this with Alex Bez called Should You Watch Dominion? I think that's what I called it, but it's about facing animal cruelty. And in that video we talked about how, you know, when I think about my journey, as I started facing animal cruelty more and more, I also started hanging out with vegans and activists more and more and more. So as I faced reality, I was also around people who understood, who empathized with what I was going through, and I was around people who supported me. You know, if you ever go to an event organized by the Save Movement of Vigil and you go to a slaughterhouse, you'll find that the people there are so supportive, and if anything ever happens to you, or if you ever feel anything, everyone is just going to be there to support you. You know, I've been at vigils and I've just cried, and just like people just start, you know, they hug me and they're there for me. That's what we're here for in the community, you know, and that's so different from that situation I described earlier where I was in that car and I was crying, but I was completely alone. You know, one of the most common messages I get too is people who message me about being like, you know, I'm so heartbroken, I can't believe this happens, and I'm all alone, like I have no one to talk to, and I feel like no one understands me. Well, if you put yourself around the right people, you'll see that that really changes a lot of things. In many ways, I found that putting myself around the right people has quote unquote solved many of the issues that I was facing as a vegan, whether it be feeling alone, you know, not knowing how to deal with that pain, not relating with people, and one of the most important things too, because that's what I felt for a long time, is feeling like I was the only one who cared so much. You know, I was like, I feel like no one around me cares about animals as much as I do, because trust me, I care so much about animals, it would blow your mind. I love animals so much, and it hurts me so much to see them go through what they go through, that like it just really hurts me. And for the longest time, I thought I was alone, because when I would talk to people, they would either not listen, or they would not go vegan, you know, they would brush it off, or even if they were respected, they wouldn't be vegan themselves, right? So I was like, am I really the only one who cares that much? What I found is that after joining the community and meeting so many people who are like-minded, I'm not alone at all. In fact, there are millions of people around the world who care just as much as I do, and who would do anything to save those animals. I mean, anything. If you look at me, there's nothing I wouldn't do to save animals. Like I would literally do anything. And you might be in this position too, where you feel in a similar way, and you are not alone. There's so many people in the world who feel that way. So definitely putting myself around the right people has really helped me in terms of, you know, allowing myself first to let go, and having people who understand me has been really helpful in dealing with all these issues. Now the third thing, and this is a third step kind of, if you want to look at it as a three-step process, is doing something about it. Getting out there and getting active in the community, whatever that looks like for you. What we uncovered in the video with Alex, and he put this brilliantly, was that, you know, when you face animal cruelty, when you watch, say, videos of slaughterhouses, when you watch a film like Dominion, or you go to a slaughterhouse to bear witness, you're doing that with a purpose. You're not doing that just to see the footage. You know, the issue is not so much like, oh, like, I can't watch this, like, you know, because I had someone message me the other day saying that, oh, I feel so bad because I feel like I can't watch animal cruelty. Like, am I a bad vegan, or like, am I not vegan enough because I can't face animal cruelty? Well, I think the issue, it's not, I wouldn't say the issue, but I think we have to look at it from a broader perspective, because it's not, like I said, about looking at the footage, it's about why are you looking at the footage. Now when I face animal cruelty, when I watch a video, when I go to a slaughterhouse, I do it with a purpose, and I do it with a purpose of ending that, of changing that, so that animals don't have to go through that anymore one day. And when I come from that place, I find that I can actually face it. You know, when I face that reality, and then I'm able to use those experiences to somehow change reality, that to me is so empowering. And I think that's what we all have in common, the people who face animal cruelty the most, is that, yeah, we're facing the most cruelty, we're looking at this the most, so in some ways we feel the most pain, or you know, that's kind of like a blanket statement, but the point is we might be exposing ourselves to this kind of negative emotions the most, but at the same time, if we're able to really channel that in making a difference, then that feeling of desperation really turns into a feeling of empowerment. And that's something that I've really experienced, you know. And if you want to figure out how to get active, I made an entire video about that called how to start vegan activism. But you know, this can look like anything, because you can go check out the organizations that I talked about in that video. For me, for example, I like to make videos. I put out videos online. I like to raise awareness that way. Whatever it is, for me, when I really started making a difference in the world, I was like, you know what? I can face this reality. I can look at this footage, because to me, it now becomes a tool. It becomes an experience that I use to then transform that reality that I don't like. There's that saying that I like very much, like, what is it? Like, I'm not gonna accept the things that I can't change anymore. I'm gonna change the things that I can't accept. I actually thought about that one. I think it doesn't make that much sense, but the point is, you know, I think that really holds true, where when you're able to use these painful experiences to really make a difference, then you can really be empowered. And I think is when you really, you know, you feel those emotions, you face that reality, but if you're not doing anything about it, and you're not doing anything to be a part of that change, to change that, then that can really easily turn into desperation. So the whole point of this video, if I had to summarize it, is that, you know, it's a reality in this world that animals suffer every single day. Every second of every day, about 3,000 land animals are killed. I don't even know how many marine animals are killed. It must be way more than that. And you know, that's a reality, and I understand how that can be really disheartening. Trust me, I think about it every second of every day. Like, that's literally what I think about when I wake up. That's what I'm thinking about now. That's what I'm gonna think about later, you know? Like, that's just how I live my life. And if you're a vegan, you might relate to this, because even though I'm an activist now, before I was an activist, that was still in the back of my mind all the time. So I definitely understand how that feels. But that being the case, we can take that knowledge and the feelings that come alongside it, and that can either become a downward spiral of negativity, or we can use it to fuel an upward spiral of positivity, empowerment, and changing the world. And what you do with that is really up to you. And so I hope this video has supported you, and kind of seeing a few things, you know, maybe you relate to me and my experiences, and you're able to commit to this journey, because it is a journey. It's not going to happen overnight, but if you really take certain steps, if you really learn to connect with your emotions, you put yourself around the right people, and then you do something to make a difference, I really believe that you can turn that reality and facing that reality into a feeling of empowerment, and be positive and really change the world and save some animals. Alright, that was it. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. I hope you learned something. I hope you're inspired, and I hope you're ready to really change your life and take steps towards putting yourself in an upward spiral of positivity, happiness, and empowerment. If you want to learn how to get involved in activism, which is a great way to meet your local community, I made a video all about that called How to Start Vegan Activism, so definitely check that out. If there's anything else you want me to make a video about, let me know in the comments and I'll make a video about that. Apart from that, if you like this video, I would really appreciate it if you hit that like button. If you enjoy my content, subscribe to my channel for more. I have some very exciting videos coming up. In any case, I'll see you next time. Take care and peace.